Hello everyone. Let's briefly talk about Microsoft certifications as we head into 2026. Microsoft has some of the most recognized certifications in the industry, and through my journey so far, by God's grace, I've been able to complete 4 of these certifications, including the Azure Fundamentals, which is also known as the AZ900, the Microsoft 365 Fundamentals, which is also known as the MS900, the Security Compliance and Identity Fundamentals, also known as the SC900, and the Information Security Administrator Associate, which is also known as the SC401. The general consensus in recent times has been to pursue the Azure Fundamentals in addition to other vendor certifications when starting out your career in IT, cloud computing, or cybersecurity. This has generally been because having a fundamental Microsoft certification has helped aspiring professionals to stand out to recruiters. But going into 2026, the trend is likely to change, with recruiters likely to focus more on professionals with specific skills rather than fundamental knowledge and credentials. Microsoft offers more than 40 certifications, and if you're starting out, it would be smart to target one that builds towards a specific role. And that could be in cloud security, for example. You would want to avoid pursuing too many certifications without building a defined skill set for your niche. That could sometimes signal to recruiters that you're simply a good test taker, but you lack clear direction. So in this video, I'll provide a brief overview of Microsoft certifications and highlight a few focus areas, particularly if your goal is to build a career in cybersecurity. So let's get started. The first thing you'd want to do is to get yourself familiar with the Microsoft certification landscape, and there are quite a number of certifications on this roadmap. You would notice that the certifications are grouped into 3 major focus areas, including cloud and AI platforms, AI business solutions, and the security focus area. Another thing you'd want to pay attention to are the certification types. There are a variety of certifications, but your focus would want to be on the Microsoft technical certifications. Also, when it comes to the categories of certifications, there are fundamental certifications, associate certifications, and expert certifications. In this diagram, you'd see expert certifications marked with a star, and usually these expert certifications have prerequisites that you must fulfill to be able to earn them. Also, all the focus areas have fundamental certifications that you can complete, and you'd notice that all these fundamental exams are in the -900 range. So you'd see AZ900 for Azure Fundamentals, you'd see AI 900 for AI Fundamentals, you'd see DP900 for Azure Data Fundamentals, and so forth. And what I'd recommend, particularly if you don't have a background in cloud computing and you don't understand the Azure landscape, is to start with the AZ900. The AZ900 explains the concept of cloud computing. It helps you to appreciate what the cloud is, and you'd get to understand how data centers are distributed across the world and how the cloud is configured. From the AZ900, I got to understand what Azure regions are, what availability zones are, and what a tenant is in Azure. Hopefully, after completing the AZ900, you'd have a clearer picture of where to proceed, whether you'd want to focus on cloud and AI platforms, or you'd want to delve into AI business solutions or security. Let's briefly look at what the Microsoft site says about the Azure Fundamentals. So in the overview, it says that as a candidate for this certification, you're a technology professional who wants to demonstrate a foundational knowledge of cloud concepts in general and Microsoft Azure in particular. This certification is a common starting point in a journey towards a career in Azure. It goes on to say that you can describe Azure architectural components and Azure services such as compute, networking, and storage. And these 3 components form the basis of the cloud environment. Another thing you'd be able to do after earning this certification is to describe features and tools to secure, govern, and administer Azure. So it says that you should have skills and experience working in an area of IT such as infrastructure management, database management, or software development. But honestly speaking, you don't need to have experience in any of these areas. It's a fundamental exam, and the main goal would be for you to be able to describe the services, not necessarily to be able to use them. Also, Microsoft provides free resources in MS Learn that you can use to learn and prepare for the certification. You'd also have access to free practice assessments that you can use to determine how ready you are for the exam. You can also use the exam sandbox to see how the testing environment would look like. This exam takes 45 minutes to complete, and the exam costs $99 in the US. However, the cost may vary depending on your region. For example, in Ghana, the cost of the exam is $50. So after completing the AZ900, you can decide to take another fundamental exam in the same area or focus on a role-based certification. But in my opinion, you may want to diversify your fundamental knowledge by focusing on another certification in the AI and business solutions path. In here, there are a number of options you can focus on. If you're interested in CRM or ERP, you can focus on the Dynamics 365 fundamentals for either the CRM or the ERP. I personally chose the Microsoft 365 fundamentals as it gives you a broader picture of the productivity tools that Microsoft has to offer and how to administer them. But going into 2026, you may want to focus on Copilot and AI, so you can look at something like the AB900, as Microsoft in recent times has focused on Copilot and how it integrates with their existing solutions. Once you're done with the fundamentals in the AI business solutions, you may want to focus more on security. And under the security focus area, there's only one certification, and that's the SC900. The SC900 is a great place to start if you're interested in the security path. It introduces you to the various solutions and portals that are related to security, and that would include the Entra ID, which is the Identity and Access Management portal. There is also the Purview portal, which is for compliance and governance. And there is the security portal, which is mainly made up of solutions around Microsoft Sentinel and XDR. Let's briefly look at what the Microsoft site says about the SC900. So in the overview, it states that the exam is targeted to you if you're looking to familiarize yourself with the fundamentals of security, compliance, and identity across cloud-based and Microsoft-related services. If you have an interest in Microsoft's SCI solutions, this exam is for you, whether you are a business stakeholder, new or existing IT professional, or student. It further says that you should be familiar with Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365 and want to understand how Microsoft SCI solutions can span across these solution areas to provide a holistic and end-to-end solution. Again, this is a fundamental certification and you don't need any pre-existing knowledge, as the main focus would be to describe the solutions and features. Again, Microsoft has free resources in MS Learn that you can use to prepare for the exam. Again, you can leverage the practice assessments as well. And again, the exam voucher is region-based, and in the US, it's $99. Once you choose to complete the SC900, you can delve into any of the role-based certifications. Apart from the SC100, which is an expert certification and has prerequisites, you can delve into any of the other certifications in any order of preference. Also, let me take this opportunity to hint you that these associate level exams are very difficult and require some level of experience either through labs or practice exams. So unlike fundamental exams where you just need to know what a solution does, at the associate level, you'd need to know how to configure the solution given a particular scenario. It would be advisable to get some hands-on experience through labs or practice as many assessments as you can. I would probably go to the extent of saying that the associate exams are more difficult than the architect expert certification exam. Because with the architect expert, what you need to do is to be able to put together a solution given a case study, but you're not necessarily tested on how to configure that solution. However, you cannot earn the architect expert exam without completing an associate exam. So the understanding would be that even though you're not tested on that during the expert exam, you already have that prerequisite and working knowledge of the solutions. So let's briefly delve into what each of these certifications entail, starting with the AZ500. So from the Microsoft site, it says that the Azure Security Engineer Associate demonstrates the skills needed to implement security controls, maintain an organization's security posture, and identify and remediate security vulnerabilities. Let's go a bit further. So in the overview, it says that as the Azure Security Engineer, you implement, manage, and monitor security for resources in Azure, multi-cloud, and hybrid environments as part of an end-to-end infrastructure. You implement and manage security components and configurations by using Microsoft Defender for Cloud and other tools. You ensure that the infrastructure aligns with standards and best practices such as the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. So your responsibilities as an Azure Security Engineer include managing the security posture, implementing threat protection, and identifying and remediating vulnerabilities. It further goes on to say that you're responsible for implementing regulatory compliance controls for Azure infrastructure, including identity and access, network compute, storage, data, applications, asset management, backup and recovery, and DevOps security. As an Azure Security Engineer, you work with architects, administrators, developers to plan and implement solutions that meet security and compliance requirements. You may also collaborate with the security operations in responding to security incidents in Azure. You should have practical experience in administration of Azure and hybrid environments, and you should have strong familiarity with Microsoft Entra ID, as well as compute, network, and storage in Azure. From this description, you'd probably infer that the Azure Security Administrator has a broad oversight of the Azure environment. So in such a role, it's recommended that you'd have some experience in Azure administration. You'd probably want to do the AZ-104, which is the Azure Administrator. In addition, you'd want to have some security experience, particularly in Microsoft Entra ID. So you'd probably want to do the SC300 in addition to the AZ500. Again, Microsoft has few resources you can use to prepare for the exam. And again, the cost of this exam is based on your region, and in the United States, it costs $165. So let's briefly look at what the SC300 entails. So the SC300 is the Microsoft Certified Identity and Access Administrator Associate. And with this certification, you're able to demonstrate the features of Microsoft's Entra ID to modernize identity solutions, implement hybrid solutions, and implement identity governance. So in the overview, it says that you configure and manage identities through their life cycles for users, devices, Microsoft Azure resources, and applications. You're responsible for ensuring the application of zero trust principles for identity and access solutions. And some of the things you should be familiar with include Azure, Microsoft 365 services, workloads, and Active Directory domain services. You should also be familiar with PowerShell and Crystal Query Language, that's the KQL. So in identity and access management, you'd use a lot of Active Directory domain services, both the cloud and the on-premise Active Directory. And as an administrator in the Microsoft environment, you need to know how to use PowerShell. So skills end upon completion include implementing identity and access management in Microsoft Entra ID and implementing identity governance strategy with Microsoft Entra ID. So you'd realize that the SC300 is mainly focused on Microsoft Entra ID. Again, Microsoft has free resources you can use to learn and prepare for the exam, as well as practice assessments. So next, let's delve into the SC401. So the SC401 is the Microsoft Certified Information Security Administrator Associate. And as an Information Security Administrator, you plan and implement information security of sensitive data by using Microsoft's Purview and related services. So in the overview, it says that you're responsible for mitigating risk by protecting data inside collaboration environments that are managed by Microsoft 365 from internal and external threats, and protecting data used by AI services. You also implement information protection, data loss prevention, retention, insider risk management, and manage information security alerts and activities. You'd also see that it says that this role also participates in responding to information security incidents. So as an information security administrator, you should be familiar with all Microsoft 365 services, PowerShell, Microsoft Entra, the Microsoft Defender portal, and the Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. You don't necessarily need to do the certifications for all the other areas. You can pursue applied skills which are for free. And in other cases, the SC900 may suffice by giving you a broad understanding of what these other services are. Okay, so next, let's talk about the SC200. So the SC200 is a Microsoft Certified Security Operations Analyst Associate. And with this credential, you should be able to investigate, search for, mitigate threats using Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and Microsoft 365 Defender. So in here, it says that as the security operations analyst, you should be able to rapidly remediate active attacks in cloud and on-premises environments. You should also advise on improvements to threat protection practices, and you should be able to identify violations of organizational policies. So some of the things you do is perform triage, respond to incidents, mitigate risk by using exposure management, hunt for threats by using threat intelligence, and use custom query language for reporting, detections, and investigations. There are a number of skills you earn from completing this certification, including threat mitigation using Microsoft Defender XDR. You'd also learn how to use Microsoft Purview. You'd use Sentinel, and you'd have to be familiar with how to create KQL queries for Microsoft Sentinel. The SC200 is a comprehensive certification, and if you are aiming for a role as a cybersecurity analyst or a SOC, it would be good to pursue the certification. Finally, let's talk about the SC100. So the SC100 is a Microsoft certified cybersecurity expert. So it says that as a Microsoft cybersecurity architect, you translate a cybersecurity strategy into capabilities that protects the assets, business, and operations of an organization. It further says that you design, guide the implementation of, and maintain security solutions that follow zero trust and best practices, including security strategies for identity, devices, data, AI, applications, network, infrastructure, and DevOps. You further design solutions for governance and risk compliance, security operations, and security posture management. As a cybersecurity architect, you continuously collaborate with leaders and practitioners in security, privacy, engineering, and other roles across an organization to plan and implement a cybersecurity strategy that meets the business needs of an organization. It further says that as a candidate for this certification, you should have experience implementing or administering solutions in the following areas, which include identity and access, platform protection, security operations, data and AI security, application security, and hybrid and multi-cloud infrastructures. So you'd find that there are 3 prerequisite options that you can fulfill before taking the SC100 exam, which is either to have the Microsoft Certified Azure Security Engineer Associate, which is the AZ500, or option 2, which is the Microsoft Certified Identity and Access Administrator Associate, which is the SC300. And the third prerequisite option is the Microsoft Certified Security Operations Analyst Associate, which is the SC200. So ideally, if you can pass any of these 3 certifications, you can then proceed to pursue the SC100. Again, the cost of the certification is region-based. In the United States, it would cost you $165. So this brings us to the end of this walkthrough. Hopefully this video has brought you some clarity on the certifications you should pursue. If you found this video to be useful, please do well to like and subscribe. And please don't hesitate to leave a comment if there's anything I missed or you need more clarity on. Thank you for watching.